Double stack pistols based on the 1911 design are increasingly popular. It used to be you had to spend well north of $2,500 or more to get a quality one. Springfield Armory joined the ranks recently with the Prodigy line, and we're going to put the Prodigy up against the Staccato P. Stay with me. Thanks for stopping by while we take a look at the Springfield Prodigy. This is the 5-inch. They also make a commander size 4 1/4 inch, still a full-size frame, but a shorter slide. And we put it side by side with the Staccato P, which has been my favorite. Is it still my favorite? Well, stay around to the end of the video and you'll see what we think about it. These are relatively comparable guns. The Springfield, again, based on a full-size upper 5-inch barrel. Again, you can get it in 4 1/4. It's a steel upper, a steel basic frame with a polymer trigger guard and polymer double stack grip module on it, whereas the Staccato P is a 4.4-inch upper. Now, in order to get something larger, you go to the 5-inch compensated XC, which is their top of the line, their flagship, or I think it's a 5.4-inch XL. But this one is basically this is designed as a duty type gun, and if I were still working in uniform, I would really want to be carrying this particular gun. This is also steel and has a polymer grip module on the steel chassis or steel frame. You can also get the Staccato in aluminum, and we're going to talk more about weights here in just a minute. But these are about as comparable as I can get. Now, it would have been maybe a little more comparable with a 4 1/4-inch commander size, but hey, take what you can get. I'm a little late to the party reviewing this. I don't own this Prodigy. I do own the Staccato P, and I had to borrow the Prodigy, and it took me a little while to get it. But I did take them to the range, and they are comparable in a lot of ways, and they are comparable in a lot of ways that we're going to talk about in the tabletop here. Let's see. So we'll start with the Prodigy and some of the things that it has that maybe the Staccato doesn't. First of all, it has a full pick rail on it, whereas you notice the Staccato only has a single slot rail. They both have forward and rear cocking serrations. This one, well, actually, they're both not only optics ready, but optics include. Well, the Springfield is optics included. You can't get the Staccato, to my knowledge, included with an optic. So the Springfield you can get for optics ready, and it comes ready with the optics plate for the Hex Dragonfly, which is what this is, and the Dragonfly mount will also fit the Vortex Venom and the Burris Fastfire. Your basic, I won't say budget sights, running around 2.5 or so. I'll talk a little bit more about the Dragonfly in a minute, but this isn't really what we're reviewing. Let's see, ambidextrous controls. The sights do co-witness. I've got the optic turned off right now. Typical grip safety, the squared off trigger guard, which you'll see on a lot of the double stack type frames. Now, the exception to that, of course, is going to be if you get the Rock Island, which is even more budget than the Springfield Prodigy. That's going to have your typical rounded off. In fact, I think it's an actual steel frame with 1911 grip panels in a double stack. So anyway, let's see. A good usable magazine release, which is nice because I can actually get it without changing my grip on this gun. And texture is more of a sandpaper type. Now you see that there's a proprietary texture on the Staccato. I understand in the newer generation, this thing is a little more than a year old. Staccato has actually gone to the sandpaper type of grip, which I understand also works a little better if your hands start getting a little slippery. This works well for me in bare hands or gloves, but if your hands are wet, you start slipping just a little bit. A little less inclined to with the sandpaper type texture, although if you're going to carry this a lot, it's going to be abrading more on the body just because of the texture, more so than this will. Not much of a magwell on here, whereas there is a magwell. This is removable, but not very easily on the Staccato. One complaint I have about this, though, is and I'm not sure why Springfield did this, but they made the takedown lever, slide stop lever, flush with the frame, which makes it really difficult to activate with the primary side thumb, and even with the secondary thumb, the support hand thumb is difficult to activate, whereas on the Staccato, I don't have any problem at all reaching it. Particularly, I do all my slide stop work with my secondary hand or support hand anyway, and definitely works well on the Staccato, which is not recessed. It's also not a recessed pin on this side, although it would be nice if that were a flush fit pin, but that's not the way they make the axle on that. They do make it flush, more flush with the frame on the Springfield. Let's see, I'm kind of jumping around here, but I want to talk about the barrel here just a minute. This is a bull barrel, 5-inch. There is no bushing on this, as you see on a lot of 5-inch guns, and it has a 2-piece guide rod. And I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not. There is an Allen or hex recess in the front for like an Allen wrench to take this guide rod apart. And in fact, after I'd been shooting this for a while, I noticed that guide rod is starting to come loose. So some people say, well, gee, Loctite. Of course, if you Loctite it, even with blue Loctite, it's going to make it a little harder to take apart. One other thing about this, and then I'll get to the Staccato here in a second, but the slide to frame fit is pretty good on this. And I don't know if you saw it hesitate and stayed back there for just a second, because the disconnect, there it is, the disconnect is actually noticeably riding on the slide, which you don't get on the Staccato. Staccato is also a bull barrel. It has a different kind of takedown rod, though, that you can actually, or a different kind of full-length guide rod. You can actually take this down without tools. It is certainly easier than using the 2-piece on that one. But there's no, you don't even feel the disconnect when you're running this. It is extremely well fitted. Talk about it fitting. On the Staccato, the frame to slide fit where the ejector is really nice. The extractor fit is just about perfect on it. Whereas on the Springfield, even though the fit to the frame, slide, and ejector is pretty good, not perfect, but pretty good. The extractor, however, does stick out just a little bit. But again, it's for $1,000 less, it's not hand fitted. Reverse crown on the barrel, but you can see it does protrude just a little bit, which is fine. Again, it's not a Wilson or a Nighthawk. You can see the exact same thing on the Staccato. It does protrude just a hair, not quite as much as it does on the Springfield, but again, reverse crown. Both these guns have fiber optic green front sights, and they both do co-witness. We mentioned ambi safeties. Where these guns start to separate, though, is just the general fit and finish. We already mentioned that, but again, it's a $1,000 difference in price. The Prodigy we mentioned comes with the Dragonfly sight or optics ready for the Dragonfly, about a $200 difference between those two. The Staccato, though, just comes with a cover plate on it. In order to get the optics plates, and there's like 4 or 5 different optics plates you can get for this, you're going to generally spend about $160 for an optics plate, whereas I believe for the Springfield, the optics plates are only $60, and it does come with one. The Staccato doesn't come with a plate. I put the Leupold Delta point on here, which I really do like, by the way. This is I think it's a 2.5 MOA on this one. And the plate on this, there is no plate. This direct mounts to the slide, and there's a kit that has a couple of alignment bushings, has screws, and comes with the rear sight on this, which is a little bit adjustable, at least for vertically adjustable. And that cost about $50, whereas a mounting plate with a rear sight on it, specific for the Dawson Precision Optics DPO, is like $160. The Agency Arms optical system for this, like I say, is a lot less expensive, $60 for an optics plate. Weights are a little bit different. The specs for both guns, the 5-inch Prodigy and the 4.4-inch Staccato, without the optic on either one, say they're 33 ounces. That's what their manufacturer's websites say for both. With the optic, no magazine, and this thing weighs, the Prodigy weighs out at least on my scale, at 38.3 ounces, whereas the Staccato P with the steel frame weighs out at 35.3, and it'll be about 7 ounces less for the aluminum frame. Let's see, the Prodigy ships with, I think, 2 17s and a 20. This is a borrowed gun. I only borrowed the 20 round magazine with it. This particular magazine is made by Duramag, and it's got the Springfield logo on the front, so it's specifically for the Prodigy. and it fits fairly well. There's a little bit of vertical movement in it, but that's not a big deal. You can easily get a hold of this to pull it out if you need to. But the mags for the Staccato, 17 round mag, actually the Staccato comes with two 17s and a 20, and of course they fit the Staccato, but they also fit the Prodigy. A little bit of movement on it, but I haven't had any failures with any of the mags I've used, with one exception. Let's see, Staccato 20 round mag fits fine. Again, a little bit of movement, but has run just completely fine with the Prodigy. And even an Atlas mag, this is a 21 round mag, 20 or 21 I believe, that I got for the Staccato, also works well in the Prodigy. Mags still, even in the Staccato, move around a little bit, maybe not quite as much as in the Prodigy. And the Prodigy mag, you gotta kind of slam it in just because of the shape of the mag base and the mag well on the Staccato, but it does work. One complaint that I did have with it is occasionally chambering the first round on the Prodigy. It did hang up a little bit, had to just slap the back of the slide in and go in. I've seen some other reviews where they had regular failures with the Duramag, but fewer failures with after the Staccato or the Atlas or other mags. I haven't had any issues other than that first round. I ran a 20 round mag out of this with no problems. The triggers are a little bit different. The trigger on the Prodigy is a typical 1911, just a very slight amount of up and down play. I believe it's an aluminum face trigger with a steel bow on it. By the way, many of the parts on the Prodigy are MIM, metal injection molding, but MIM done right is not necessarily going to be an issue. Anyway, a little bit of up and down play, just a little bit of take up, and by the way, completely unloaded. Little bit of take up, a fairly smooth press. It's just there's not a glitch break. It's just a fairly clean break. No over travel. Does have an adjustable over travel stop on it. Trigger on the Prodigy on a 5-pull average came out to 3¼ pounds, which really isn't too bad. Reset on this is typical 1911. Just out to there, and again, it's clean. So nice trigger, not the best in the world, but certainly acceptable. The Staccato P, on the other hand, has a polymer face trigger and almost no vertical movement, just a little bit, and a little bit of take up, about the same as on the Prodigy, and a clean, crisp break, no over travel. Again, it has an over travel stop and short 1911 reset, and this measures out at 2 pounds, 1.6 ounces, and a 5-pound average. Really, really nice trigger on this. Difference between the two, of course, is MIM parts, machine put together with a little bit of hand fitting, particularly with the slide to frame, and a whole lot more hand fitting with machined parts on the Staccato line. Oh, safeties, ambidextrous safety, and positive engagement and disengagement on the Prodigy. Just a little bit of movement after disengagement, which is, again, it's not a hand-fitted gun. Staccato, positive engagement, positive disengagement, and when you take it down, there is no movement left. The paddles on the safety on the Staccato are just a little bit, let's see if I can get a good picture in the camera here, a little bit wider than they are on the Prodigy. I didn't notice it a lot when I'm shooting, but just holding this with my thumb riding the safety, which is how I shoot the gun, the Staccato does seem to be a little bit more comfortable. The paddles on the Prodigy are straight across and sharp edged. On the Staccato, they are a little bit angled down and not quite as sharp, so it's just a little more comfortable. One complaint I had about the Staccato was the smooth mag release. I haven't had a problem with this one because it does stick out. My original Staccato C, I really still don't like the fact that it's smooth and not as pronounced, whereas at least you have a little texture on the Prodigy. Again, I'm not getting into a review on the Hex Dragonfly, but this is a 3 MOA optic on it. It does not have a motion activated feature. It says it'll automatically turn off after 16 hours to save battery life, but you do have to turn it back on, and You do have to, if you want to turn it off, wait. Without waiting for that 16 hours, you have to push it and hold it, and it'll go away. 3.5 MOA dot. Loophole delta point, on the other hand, 2.5 MOA on this, and it automatically goes off after 5 minutes of inactivity, and it does have motion sensing, so as soon as this gun gets the slightest movement, that dot comes back on. Of course, there's a big difference too. The Hex Dragonfly is about a $250 optic. You can find them about $230, roughly the same price as the Vortex Venom, which will also fit on that mount, or the Burris Fastfire. The Loophole delta point, on the other hand, is around a $450 sight. You can generally find those for about $400. So obviously that is going to change the price point. So with the Hex Dragonfly on the Springfield Prodigy, you're about a $1,700 gun, ready to roll right out of the box. The Staccato P, on the other hand, is $2,500 optics ready with the Dawson Precision Optics system on it. You still have to spend $160 for a plate, or $50 if you're going to put the Loophole delta point on, plus an optic. So you're going to be north of $3,000 MSRP when you get all done with that, versus $1,600 here or $1,700. So a little more than half as much. So the question is whether or not the Staccato is worth almost twice as much as the Springfield. And we're going to get to conclusions on all that here in just a minute or so. But how do they shoot? Do they really shoot that much different? And the answer is not really. I didn't have any problems except occasionally having to tap the back of the slide to get the first round in on the Springfield. I have never had one single failure of any kind on the Staccato, and I've probably got about 2,000 rounds through this particular gun at this time. Don't have that much through the Springfield. It may break in. I don't know. 12-yard running the plates, and we've been running some video off and on through this. You'll see that shooting at 12 yards, 25 yards, 50 yards, they work, and even 50 yards at a 6-inch plate, no problem. And this was, I borrowed this from the firearm guy, and he said that it came dead sighted right out of the box. He didn't have to touch it at all, and I didn't have to touch it. It's working fine. Oh, one other thing. As long as talking about the optics, you'll see that there is no battery tray on the side or on the top of the Hex Wasp, which means you do have to take it off, whereas the Delta Point Pro has a top mount battery, real easy to pop out and pop back in without having to take the optic off, which means Loctite it and it will stay there and run. All right, positives. Let's start with the most obvious positive is price. The price point on the Springfield is going to definitely be a plus. You can get into the double stack, a quality double stack gun with an optic for $1,700. Not bad at all. Full rail on it, which by the way means you've got to get a holster that's going to fit it. This holster is made for a regular railed 1911, and the Prodigy fits in it quite well. Holster here by Black Point, I believe. You got Black Point specifically for this gun with a light on it, and actually when you've got a light on, then that's what locks the gun into the holster. It'll also work with the CompTac holster that I got specifically for the Staccato P. P works very well in there, and the Prodigy also fits in, even though it's got the full length rail on it, a little longer than on the Staccato, and it sticks out there a half inch at the end just because of the difference in barrel length, but it also fits in that. They will not fit in regular 1911 holsters though, unless you get one that's designed for a gun with a full length rail. All right, so price advantage, the Springfield, no doubt about it. The optic plate advantage, again, that's part of the price advantage. Actually $60 I think for the plate I said for this, versus $160 for the Staccato. Grip texture, compared the sandpaper type with the proprietary Staccato on this, 6 1/2 does the other. Probably a little better traction with the Springfield grip, but again, Staccato has changed that for the latest generation in the P. Frames are roughly the same. You can get an aluminum frame for the Staccato for a carry, and again, that's probably what I'd be carrying on duty if I were back in uniform. Whereas you're stuck with the steel frame on the Prodigy, and the Prodigy does weigh a couple ounces more with an optic, comparing specific apples to apples there. Let's see, fit and finish, the Staccato hands down. But that hasn't made a big deal of difference in function. Where function is going to be the driving factor is going to be long-term testing. Once you've got I don't know, 10,000 rounds to the Springfield. Is it going to hold up as well as 10,000 rounds to the Staccato? And I don't know. Again, the fit and finish on the Staccato is just a little bit better. Takedown, the advantages to the Staccato with that quick takedown rod. I have to see what they specifically call it. I'll try to put it in the description down here. Whereas the two-piece guide rod in the Springfield, you got to watch it so that it doesn't back out on you, and it's a little bit more pain to take apart. And finally, you can get a 26-round magazine from Springfield for the Prodigy. That I'm sure that magazine will work also in the Staccato. Do you really need it? It depends. Take it to the range for competition or something. Either one of these guns is going to work fine out of the box. Again, time will tell about the longevity of the Hex Dragonfly sight, and you've got just as many options for optic on the Prodigy, on the Staccato, depending on what kind of plates you want to get. So end result, is the Staccato worth almost double what the Springfield Prodigy is going to be? I'd say if you want to get into an entry level, maybe a little above entry level, but if you want to get into the double stack 1911 platform, it's going to be difficult to beat the Prodigy in either the 4 1/4 or the 5-inch variation. And again, you've got that more slots on your pick rail if that really is something that you need. Staccato, yes, there are Staccato fanboys out there. There are Staccato haters out there. I have a few Staccatos. I really like them. When the Prodigy came out, my local FFL asked me if I wanted to pick up a Prodigy, and I said, "Yeah, I've already got a Staccato. Why do I need a Prodigy?" But if I didn't have it, this is a good way to get into it. 1,700 versus about $3,000 by the time you get done with everything. So again, kind of long-winded, but that's typical of our comparison videos. I'll tell you right now, though, if I was working in uniform, I would want the absolute best quality that I could get in a duty gun, and it would be the Staccato P. I'm not quite as confident yet with the Prodigy, but yeah, time will tell. It may very well shake out. So thanks for stopping in while we did a long comparison between the new Springfield Prodigy and the tried and true Staccato P.